Have you ever pondered why your feet occasionally go numb following specific workouts? You might assume it's merely the effects of getting older or a small annoyance. But imagine if I revealed that certain everyday exercises, the very ones you've heard are beneficial for your health, might actually be aggravating that numbness. Even more troubling, they could be quietly harming your nerves, heightening your chances of stumbling, and stealing away your sense of autonomy. As a person who's journeyed through life's many years, I can share from my own experiences that not every form of motion qualifies as beneficial motion, particularly as the years accumulate. Today, I'd like to address my fellow older adults forthrightly and candidly, those of us past 60, 70, and further along. We have to safeguard the mobility and vigor that remain to us, and that begins with understanding which exercises we ought to steer clear of. Let's jump straight into the 5 exercises that are quietly injuring your feet and your tomorrow. Before we plunge ahead, if you haven't yet subscribed, I suggest you click that button and activate the bell notification so you won't overlook any more health advice crafted especially for you. If this video resonates with you, drop a 1 in the comments. If it doesn't, enter a 0 to help me refine my content for you. 1. Stationary bicycling, especially recumbent bikes. Stationary bicycling, particularly with recumbent bikes. For plenty of older folks, the stationary bike appears as a secure refuge, a cozy spot for indoor workouts that avoids the hazard of tumbling. The recumbent version in particular, with its backing support and effortless pedaling, strikes many as an ideal option for joints that have seen better days. We settle in, we cycle, and we convince ourselves that we're accomplishing something positive. But suppose I informed you that this very ease is precisely where the risk conceals itself. You know, what we frequently ignore is how extended sitting on these devices exerts pressure on some of the most delicate nerves in our lower extremities. Above all, the sciatic nerve that extends from the lower back via the hips all the way to the feet. Once this nerve gets squeezed or aggravated, it won't be long until that all too familiar prickling emerges. That numbness across the bottoms of your feet or in the ends of your toes. What starts out as a subtle feeling can gradually develop into a much graver issue. Nerve impairment that persists, intensifies, and deprives you of feeling, equilibrium, and assurance. Yet it goes further than that. For older adults who also contend with diabetes, inadequate blood flow, or back problems, pedaling on a stationary bike for extended stretches can restrict essential circulation to the legs below, rendering the numbness sharper and more enduring. It's beyond mere unease. It's an alert that your system is under strain. And once our feet lose sensation, we forfeit our capacity to respond, to place our steps correctly, to sense discomfort or force. This lays the groundwork for slips, harm, and a downward cycle of medical troubles from which recovery might prove challenging. I've had acquaintances, resilient, engaged, steadfast friends, who wound up in rehabilitation centers, not due to sickness, but from one fleeting instant when their foot failed to cooperate. They missed sensing the sidewalk edge, the exercise mat, the stair threshold. Why? The subtle cues of numbness had been disregarded, because they persisted with workouts that subtly eroded their vitality. This isn't intended to alarm you, my dear viewer. It's designed to rouse you, softly but insistently. Your form possesses more insight than you might credit it with, and when it murmurs via those prickling toes, it's pleading for adjustment, not defiance. So now the query arises. What else are we inadvertently inflicting on ourselves? You could be startled by the following widespread exercise that's subtly applying stress not to your feet, but straight to your backbone. Let's examine it more closely. If you're continuing to view and discovering these observations useful, kindly leave a number 1 in the comments to show you're alongside me. Now, onward to the second point. 2. Toe touches and forward bends. Toe touches and forward bends. On the surface, toe touches look innocuous, perhaps even advantageous. A stretch you've performed since your early years, one that seems as though it ought to relax the frame and preserve your suppleness. We've all heard the counsel to remain flexible with advancing age, and numerous among us heed it diligently, figuring that a routine forward lean will ward off rigidity. But the reality for those of us in our later decades is more intricate and, to be candid, considerably more perilous. As the years advance, the spine grows less tolerant, the cushions in the lower back shed their moisture, the gaps between the bones tighten, and nerves get more prone to squeezing. When you extend ahead in a profound toe reach or fold forward swiftly, particularly absent adequate backing, you're compelling the lower spine into a susceptible stance. It might register as a fine elongation right then, but what's truly occurring is the risk of clamping spinal nerves. Nerves that govern sensation in your legs, your ankles, and your feet. This clamping doesn't invariably shout with agony. At times it's subdued, merely a faint hum in the foot, an odd numbness in the toes, a sensation akin to padding across wool. And once that numbness takes hold, it can turn into a lingering visitor. I've encountered men and women who kicked off each morning with their customary stretches, and after weeks or months passed, they realized they could no longer properly sense their feet. What had commenced as an unassuming habit turned into the spark for ongoing nerve harm. What's particularly concerning is how readily this sort of harm slips by unnoticed. We attribute numbness to faulty circulation. We assure ourselves it's simply a facet of growing older. But truthfully, these forward folds are endangering your self-reliance. One awkwardly done stretch, one minor offset, and the spine can endure in manners that echo across the whole physique. I share this not to intimidate, but to shield. When you've surpassed 60, each motion needs to benefit you, not merely elongate you. You require steadiness, not stress. Your back isn't the powerhouse it used to be, and it merits a more tender form of attention. So, if an activity as benign as reaching for your toes might provoke nerve impairment, picture what repeated leaping and thumping on firm ground could inflict on your feet, particularly when the alert signals evade detection until it's past mending. Let's reveal the subsequent concealed peril together. 3. High-impact aerobics. Jumping jacks, step aerobics. High-impact aerobics, jumping jacks, step aerobics. There came a phase in our existence when rapid motion, intense perspiration, and soaring leaps made us sense power and vitality. We came of age in a period that exalted activity. Aerobic sessions, step classes, TV programs brimming with lively tunes and daring assurances. Keep in motion and remain youthful. But what nobody mentioned in those days was how the very actions we welcomed in our prime might evolve into covert underminers in our elder phases. High-impact routines such as jumping jacks or step aerobics can inflict greater damage than benefit once you're beyond 60, particularly if you're grappling with foot numbness, nerve issues, or diminishing padding beneath your soles. Every leap, every abrupt touchdown transmits a shock upward from the feet, through the knees, and profoundly into the spine. And with nerves already delicate, these collisions can trigger tiny traumas that build up gradually, rendering numbness a more constant and hazardous presence. What's most poignant is that countless seniors partake in these regimens, driven by resolve and optimism. They press on despite unease, believing they're maintaining their robustness, while actually they might be causing irreparable harm. I once knew a lady in her upper 70s, brimming with vigor and dedication, who signed up for a group aerobics session thrice weekly. She insisted, she refused to decelerate. Yet after several months, sensation ebbed from her toes. Instability followed. Then, the tumble. All stemming from her unawareness that those brisk, hammering steps were undermining her base with each gathering. You understand, the peril of these workouts isn't invariably instant. Numbness accumulates gradually. The physique adjusts to discomfort, conceals it, and persuades us to proceed. But when we disregard the murmurs of tingling feet or sore joints, we forfeit the opportunity to guard what functions still. And once sensation departs, even traversing the kitchen floor turns risky. Remaining engaged is vital, but the manner of our motion must transform. Motion ought to mend us these days, not injure us. And if slamming your feet against the ground proves risky, envision what occurs when you perch on a single leg, maintain the stance, and compel your foot to shoulder your entire body's load. Up next is an exercise that appears elegant, yet could rank as the most unbalancing among them. If you're persisting in watching and deeming these observations worthwhile, please post a number 1 below to indicate you're present. Now, let's proceed to point number 4. 4. Prolonged standing yoga poses. Tree pose, warrior pose. Prolonged standing yoga poses. Tree pose, warrior pose. Yoga has endured as a celebrated source of soothing, renewing advantages. For numerous seniors, it registers as the ideal fusion of awareness and activity, a mild method to remain attuned to the physique. And yes, yoga can indeed mend, but not every yoga stance suits maturing forms, particularly those requiring sustained equilibrium while perched on one foot. Positions like tree or warrior, despite their aesthetic appeal, can covertly become snares for individuals already facing foot numbness or unsteadiness. What plenty fail to grasp is that the extended duration in one of these stances, with all your mass balanced on one foot, amplifies the burden on the tiny, frequently enfeebled nerves in your feet and ankles. For a person in their 60s or 70s, especially amid prevailing nerve conditions or joint inflammation, this forms a formula for aggravating numbness. It's beyond merely forfeiting equilibrium. It's about depriving the nerves of oxygen and overwhelming their limits, compelling them toward malfunction. And when the nerves weaken, the feeling in your feet dims, gradually, like a fading glow. The surface underfoot starts to seem alien, erratic. It's no longer solely about power. It's about security. I once encountered a former firefighter, dignified and rigorous, who embraced yoga to reclaim suppleness. He conquered each pose, but the subtle toll of sustaining those upright holds for excessive time bred a gradual numbness in his right foot. In time, he lost the proper sense of the ground while strolling. One overlooked stride from a curb, and his world shifted. A broken hip, extended rehabilitation, and the lingering awareness that the very stance which once instilled strength had undermined his form's boundaries. As time progresses, equilibrium turns hallowed, but that doesn't imply we must endanger our forms to sustain it. Safer avenues exist to foster steadiness, approaches that honor shifts in our joints, nerves, and blood flow. Yoga isn't the adversary. It simply requires tailoring to the life stage we're navigating. Uprightness counts far less than upright safety. And if serene poses can exert such a deep influence on your nerve well-being, consider the exercise that most of us perform unquestioningly: walking, particularly when extended in footwear lacking support on unforgiving terrains. The ultimate concealed threat might astonish you, as it's probably woven into your everyday pattern. 5. Long walks in improper footwear. Long walks in improper footwear. Walking. It presents as the most straightforward, secure type of workout. Physicians endorse it, health pieces extol it, and many of us weave it into our daily rhythm. We tie our laces and affirm to ourselves that we're benefiting our hearts, our joints, our thoughts. But what if I disclosed that even walking, something so elemental and innate as advancing one foot before the next, can turn detrimental if we're inattentive to the method, the distance, and above all, what's encasing our feet? With advancing years, our foot architecture alters. The padding that once buffered every stride starts to dwindle. Arches may flatten, and the minor nerves within our feet grow more reactive, or, worse, commence faltering. When we traverse extended paths sans suitable shoes, ones providing genuine arch bolstering, padding, and ample toe space, we're not merely courting unease, we're priming the scene for advancing nerve impairment. Unsuitable footwear squeezes fragile nerves, notably the tibial and plantar ones that course along the sole and toward the toes. That squeezing, across time, breeds numbness, prickling, and the disconcerting sense that your feet have detached from the remainder of you. Layer on the ongoing strain of striding over rigid pavement, irregular paths, or slick surfaces, and you've brewed the ideal tempest for nerve aggravation, swelling, and equilibrium erosion. I recall a neighbor, a gentle fellow in his early 80s, who strolled each morning come rain or clear skies. He donned the identical worn sneakers from years prior, certain they were molded to comfort. But gradually, the numbness in his feet intensified. He overlooked treading on a tiny pebble. He sensed no forming blister from the seam chafing his heel. By the point he pursued aid, a minor abrasion had escalated to a perilous contagion. It wasn't the stroll that wounded him. It was the stroll devoid of safeguarding. You see, strolling stays secure only when your feet receive full bolstering and your perceptions remain whole. When numbness infiltrates, it pilfers beyond mere feeling. It pilfers vigilance. and vigilance is what sustains us erect, protected, and commanding. So prior to exiting the threshold tomorrow, inquire of yourself, are your shoes aiding you or covertly undermining you? And having unveiled these concealed perils, you may now ponder, what options remain secure for us? Is there a means to remain robust, limber, and equilibrated without imperiling the very elements we rely on most? Let's delve into the exercises that genuinely esteem the maturing form and aid its flourishing. What you should do instead. Following the discovery of exercises that might be injuring your feet and nerves, it's understandable to sense doubt, perhaps a touch of dejection. You could question whether you ought to forego the bike, avoid overextending in stretches, leaping, or prolonged strolls. What remains available for me? Allow me to assure you, abundant possibilities persist. But it's beyond mere activity. It's about navigating thoughtfully, with tenderness and empathy for the form you've merited across decades of existence. This life segment isn't centered on demonstrating vigor as we formerly did. It's about selecting motions that esteem the insight and delicacy of a body shaped by time. It's about routines that don't tax your nerves but sustain them, that don't weary your joints but renew them. You merit such attentiveness, and you can undoubtedly claim it. Commence by welcoming mild, bolstered motions. Chair yoga, say, permits you to elongate and inhale profoundly, sans stressing your spine or feet. It fosters openness in the physique and soothes the neural network, a necessity we all crave increasingly. Or experiment with aquatic pursuits like swimming or water aerobics. The water bears your mass, alleviates joint discomfort, and boosts blood flow, all minus the severe jolts to your feet. It ranks among the most secure, revitalizing motion varieties for older adults. Even a brief everyday stroll, merely 10 or 15 minutes, can prove restorative, provided it's undertaken in fitting footwear that genuinely suits your feet and delivers true bolstering. Not merely shoes that seem plush, but those crafted for seasoned feet. Your form perceives the variance, even if awareness lags. And consider Tai Chi, a deliberate, fluid discipline that enhances equilibrium, synchronization, and internal serenity. No leaps, no thuds, merely elegant, deliberate motions. I've witnessed folks in their 80s initiate Tai Chi and reclaim assurance they deemed eternally gone. Above all, heed your form invariably. The aim isn't to compel, it's to conserve. And amid uncertainty, consult a physical therapist attuned to the demands of mature adults. They can craft a regimen suited to your state and aspirations. Recall, motion concerns not amplification. It's about what benefits your form. Today, let's opt for exercises that revere our tenure, shield our nerves, and bestow the boon of secure self-reliance for countless additional years ahead. Final thoughts. A message from one senior to another. Advancing in years has imparted numerous insights to me. It's revealed the allure of moderation, the worth of being present, and the subdued potency of sagacity. But maybe among the most sobering teachings of aging is this one. Our forms will invariably communicate with us. Gently initially, then with greater insistence should we neglect to attend. That peculiar prickling in your feet, the muted throb in your lower back post-stretch, the equilibrium lapse that mimics awkwardness. Those aren't haphazard age mishaps. They're your form nudging your shoulder, declaring, "Proceed softly. I've borne you across extensive time. Kindly tend to me now." You see, in our youth, we barreled through discomfort unreflectively. We sprinted swifter, vaulted loftier, hoisted weightier, not owing to absence of unease, but because we held that fortitude entailed overlooking it. We deemed endurance lay in our tolerance threshold. But presently, endurance assumes a wholly distinct nature. It resides in our aptitude to modify, to recalibrate, and to esteem the form bestowed upon us, even amid its evolving state. I'm 90 years of age. I've observed life cycles arrive and depart, and I've beheld sturdy men and women topple, not from frailty, but from failing to discern the covert attrition on their nerves, their feet, their poise. They overlooked that certain exercises they'd relied on for years were incrementally eroding their base. They overlooked because nobody informed them. So, I'm conveying it to you presently, not as a physician or coach, but as one who's endured sufficiently to glimpse the reality below the veneer. Motion remains indispensable. Our forms yearn for it. But now motion must stem from deliberate intent, not fervor. We needn't validate anything further. What we require is to defend the remnants, to uphold the self-reliance we cherish, and to esteem security above exertion. If you've sensed foot numbness following a stroll, a stretch, or bike session time, kindly refrain from dismissing it. That numbness constitutes a murmur from your nerves, an indicator that alignment falters slightly. It's not to dread, but it merits reverence, because neglecting it this day could herald confronting something gravely weightier tomorrow. I've grown to regard my feet not solely as instruments that transport me, but as subdued allies who've accompanied me via every life segment. They've conveyed me through elation, sorrow, bereavement, and affection. They've capered, faltered, dashed, and paused in awe. Now they warrant benevolence. They warrant fitting shoes, restorative exercises, and a rhythm that esteems the tenure they've weathered. And so do yours. There's a subdued nobility in tempering pace, not because necessity dictates, but because selection wills it. There's potency in electing exercises that don't exact more from you, but rather bestow in return. Something enduring, something mending. In this life phase, it's not about replicating past deeds. It's about pursuing what's apt for you at present. That could entail shorter walks, but wiser ones. Shallower stretches, yet more mindful. Exchanging bygone regimens for motions that secure your feet, tranquilize your nerves, and stabilize your poise. You retain the capacity to mold your tomorrow. You retain selections that signify. You can elect against permitting numbness to burgeon into graver peril. You can elect against awaiting a tumble or break to impart the teaching. You can initiate today, tenderly yet purposefully, because each stride you venture, be it measured, aided, or aquatic, affirms, I persist in tending this form. I persist in prizing this existence. I persist in trusting the forthcoming. So from one elder to another, nurture your feet. They're beyond mere base. They form the link betwixt you and every destination you yet aspire to reach. And should you ever doubt if alteration's window has shut, permit me to affirm, it hasn't. It's never untimely to navigate divergently. It's never untimely to attend your form with amplified empathy. And it's assuredly never untimely to advance with sagacity rather than haste. Embrace the milder route. You'll marvel at the robustness it instills. These teachings aim to motivate you toward full, genuine living. Now, I'd relish hearing from you. Pause to contemplate and relay one insight you've gleaned and intend to implement in your existence. Let's bolster one another on this path to welcoming these verities. If this video delighted you, kindly comment a 1. If not, comment a 0 freely. Your input holds great value for us. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for additional fare like this. Thank you for viewing, and cheers to navigating life by your own measure.